Booyah.
Chuckberry, strawberry, cranberry, dingleberry, baby.
Chopping wood. Once upon a time would have been a survival necessity in Alberta to get through the winter. And you would have had to chop enough wood a year in advance to be able to get through that winter. Now it's a nice thing to have for summer campfires and warm, toasty winters.
Possum pie, tater pie, moon pie, pie pie.
And that's extra work. That's not your job.
Right, so you would kind of want to be efficient at it.
Absolutely.
And not a lot of wasted energy. So you want to get good at chopping wood, which is why lumberjack games exist. Sports games prepare for doing that thing in real life. Like lumberjack sports, lumberjack games are there to hone the skills so that they can be better to lumberjacks in real life. They don't just goof around because it's fun to do it, but it actually helps craft their skills so that they can be better lumberjacks. I also like to think of the Olympics as controlled war games between countries as they compete for medals. Because in a lot of ways, that's what they're doing. They're pouring in money to try to create the best athletes to be better than the other nation, and doing that through sport for the sake of life. Our prayer is the same thing. Prayer is there to have an impact on the way that we live. The fruit of prayer is always charity. And we know this to be true because we are body and soul. And so whatever we do in the soul is intended to express itself through the body. It's like the kind of disputed quote from the letter of James between Christians when he says, if a brother or sister is ill-clad and in lack of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things they need for the body, what does it profit? So by faith itself, if it has no works, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I by my works will show you my faith. Our faith that grows in a life of prayer expresses itself. It necessarily expresses itself. The reason that creation exists is because it's an expression of the love of God. This is how we're called to live as Christians. So, if on your way out from Mass, you start to curse the person that cut you off in the parking lot, you might want to rethink what you were praying about when you were at Mass. Some of you may have heard of St. Vincent de Paul, but you may not have heard of the founder of St. Vincent de Paul, Blessed Frederick Ozanam, who was a layman, and simply from his deepening faith, knew that he had to do something for the poor of where he lived in France. That his faith drove him out to serve the people and to bring others along with him to form the society to serve their needs, to go and be with them first. He says, our aim is to keep the faith and to spread it among others by means of charity. The fruit of prayer is charity. And if our life lacks charity, we sincerely need to re-examine what our prayer life is all about. For those of us that have played sports, we've all met that athlete that has these incredible skills when you're practicing, but they're never able to replicate them when it comes to game time. This is where there's a disconnect between the skills achieved and the real lived life. Same thing in prayer. You can see people in the parish that seem to have a deep prayer life, that they seem just caught up in meditation for minutes at a time, but then you meet them outside of their prayer time and you wonder where the charity went. What needs to happen is that in those games, they have to match or exceed the skills that are actually needed in life to make them better. And so in a lumberjack game, when they're doing sawing competition to see who can saw it the fastest, you don't usually need to saw a tree that fast in real life, but it hones their skill to saw straighter and more efficiently for the field. And the same thing with walking on the logs competition, or with chainsaws, or with axes. The speed at which they do them and the way in which they do them helps them to do their job better. So when it comes to our prayer life should be matching and even exceeding what we need for living out charity in our day-to-day life. And so when you look at the way that you pray, think about what you're bringing into your prayer that's at least matching, if not exceeding, what you need for the regular temptations that you face in your daily life. So for example, when you look at the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, the first week is a meditation on hell and on the fate of the damned. Not because we all want to push ourselves towards thinking that that's what I deserve, but rather because by knowing what the consequence is of mortal sin in my life, I will face it differently in the life that I live. Or the reason that we meditate on the life of Christ through Lectio Divina in the Gospels, or reading the lives of the saints, is that a lofty goal? Does it feel overwhelming how good of a life they lived? Absolutely. But by seeing what is possible in their lives, then when I face something smaller, maybe the way that I make the decision is different because I know it's possible. It's been done before. I'm not the only one doing it. And it changes the way that our prayer bears fruit in charity. And finally, just the simple task of praying daily and a consistent life of prayer, doing it all the time, makes it much more likely that you will pray when the time is needed, or that you will remember God in your lived life apart from your devoted time of prayer or Mass on Sunday. You'll draw that into the rest of the week. When we pray, it has to at least match, if not exceed, what our needs are for living charity in the world. And I'll finish with leaving with you a great giver of charity that we all know and love, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She said, "The fruit of silence is prayer, and the fruit of prayer is faith, and the fruit of faith is love, and the fruit of love is service, and the fruit of service is peace." Remember that your prayer is not separated from your life. Your prayer is your life. And so allow the way that you pray to make you into the Christian you know God desires you to be.